Hey everybody, Matt out in Oregon. If you saw my video yesterday, it was regarding Trump's comments about punishing women if he was to win the presidency and abolish abortion. Now, I did a small snippet about that, but also about the reaction from Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on his comments. Now, I did make a prognostication that the media was going to run with this story and it was going to be all over the news. And sadly, I was correct. So it's not like it was like an amazing prediction. I mean, the mainstream media is pretty predictable, so it's not like I'm going to take a bunch of credit. In fact, I wish I was wrong. But the fact is that MSNBC's lineup of Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, Lawrence O'Donnell, all three of them led with the story. They did long pieces on it, and Chris Matthews, who did the interview, did his entire show on it. So half of it was about that one question alone, and the rest of it was all about Donald Trump, the entire show. Well, Chris Hayes did another story, amazingly, but this one I thought was equally laughable. Now, before he did this story, he went on a commercial break, but he described the story that was coming up, the one I'm speaking of, as media bias and the Democratic frontrunner. So when the commercials were playing, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe he's going to do a story about the favoritism and media bias that Hillary Clinton is getting from the mainstream media. Well, as he came back and he started the story, I realized that once again I was disappointed. He actually was reporting on a Washington Post story that was originally broke on Monday, and it stated that a lawmaker who was not named got information from the FBI director, who's James B. Comey, which he stated 147 FBI agents are currently working on the internet server case regarding Hillary Clinton. So 147 FBI agents is a ton. It's crazy. But we don't know if this is true. Now, the story was not fully retracted, but there was some additional information added onto it. One of them said that there was probably closer to 50, and that the number of 147 seemed extremely high. Now, this was from a retired FBI agent who was not currently working on the case, but this was somebody with knowledge. So, but later on, there was some additional information to that additional information stating that there were actually probably about 12. So this was from Washington Post, and it stated that this was from somebody with direct knowledge. Now, we don't know who this person is either, and the concerning thing about it is it says about 12. So if you were on the case, or if you were involved in the case, you would think that you would have an exact number. Now, the agent that are retired that said 50 agents stated that 50 agents are usually brought onto a case if there is some sort of terror plot or terror attack. So the number of 147 seems extremely high. But we don't know. I mean, it could be, we don't know what number it could be. But the fact is that Chris Hayes decided to make up a number, essentially, by saying that there were 12 agents on it. Well, that's not true, Chris. It says about 12, and we don't even know who that person is. Now, he also jumped to the conclusion of saying that lawmaker that originally gave the Washington Post the number of 147 was most likely or most assuredly a Republican lawmaker. Now, I'm not saying this isn't true. It would not surprise me one bit. But the fact is that we don't know either one of these things, and to say otherwise at this point, a little disingenuous. And the fact that he stated that there were 12 agents later on in the story says that he He's not reporting the facts. So that's some shoddy reporting, and I think we need to get some more information before we start making comments like that. Now, Chris Matthews brought on a guest named Eric Boehlert, who's from Media Matters, and both of them spoke about this and agreed that this was a very damaging story to Hillary Clinton, and that this was a story that, while it could officially be retracted, the additional information or the retraction of this story would not be sufficient, that it would be like putting toothpaste back in the tube. Once it's out there, it's out there. And sometimes people only hear the big story and they don't hear the retraction. So there's definitely, if this number is gravely wrong, or if it's just an out-and-out lie, or if it came from an unreliable source, then that's on the Washington Post. But we don't know this at this time. So to say otherwise, we can have our guesses, but don't report these things like they are facts when we don't know if they are. So Boehlert went on to say that we expect to hear these type of reports or these type of stories from right-wing media, which is true. I mean, we hear these things all the time from Fox News, Drudge Report, Hannity, the list goes on. But that he also said that, but when the Washington Post starts reporting things like this, that's when things get dangerous. So if the Washington Post was wrong, and they knew that this was an unreliable source, and they knew this number of 147, or they knew this number of 147 was a lie or something like that, then yeah. I mean, this is a shameful job by the Washington Post. They should have known better. But the fact is that we don't know all the facts right now. So it could be 147, very unlikely. But it could be 12, it could be less, it could be more, it could be anything in between. We don't know. But they went on to, Eric Boehlert went on to mention that there were 3 sources that he named off the top of his head that stated that Hillary Clinton would not be indicted. In fact, no one would be indicted in this case. Now, he used the names of Doyle McManus, who is an LA Times writer with no inside information. He also used the American Prospect, a news outlet, and which quoted a Michigan law professor. So that's maybe an educated guess, but certainly not an insider or anyone with direct knowledge. The other source was the Associated Press, which Eric Boehlert said the Associated Press rounded up some experts. What the hell does that mean, Mr. Boehlert? Now, once again, this was used as a shameful ploy in order to minimize and clear Hillary before she's even been investigated. Now, I'm not saying that Hillary's going to be, I'm not saying that she's going to be arrested or indicted. We can guess, but we don't know. Now, it's Hillary Clinton, so the fact is that even if somebody else was going to get investigated and convicted, let's face it, people in power get off on these type of things. So the chances are she probably won't be indicted. She probably won't be arrested, but we don't know. So stating that this came from a Republican, stating that it was 12 instead of about 12, stating these 3 sources that say she's not going to be indicted. Are you seeing a pattern here? Okay, so Boehlert also went on to state that the right-wing media and its listeners and its viewers that only listen to right-wing radio, that this is going to add credence to it, and I don't disagree with that. But he also stated that the right-wing media and its viewers, the ones that only listen to right-wing radio, live in an echo chamber or a bubble. So this is true. I mean, if you only hear right-wing radio, you're probably going to think that Hillary is going to get indicted, that it's a sure thing she's going to go to jail, and so on. But the fact is that I think Mr. Boehlert and Mr. Chris Hayes need to look in the mirror, because when the Washington Post ran 16 straight stories, negative stories on Bernie Sanders, where were they to talk about the damaging effects that may have had on Bernie Sanders? They didn't ask him to retract those stories. They didn't really say much of anything, and here they are making up information, jumping to conclusions, and trying to clear Hillary of any affiliation with this. Now, they need to look in the mirror, and they need to look at the bubble that they're in. Also, they keep pumping the fact that Hillary's the more electable candidate, even though all the evidence, all the data, they don't have any data to support their theory of this, and they also choose to actually go away from all the polling numbers. So the numbers say that Bernie's more favorable, he's more trusted, and he actually beats all three of the Republican candidates by larger margins than Hillary Clinton. So the fact that they keep saying he's more, or she's more electable, she's more electable, she's more electable, that is hurting Bernie Sanders. And they refuse to look at that, and they refuse to see the bubble they're in. You guys are in a bubble. You need to look in the mirror.